All right, another podcast from the Michigan Institute of Athletics in Brighton, Michigan. It's going to be a stellar podcast today. I'm super excited about this. This is a man sitting across the table from me that when I was a child and I was watching the Super Bowl, this man was kicking in the Super Bowl. So right before we get into it, I want to shout out VetLife. VetLife is a 501c3 nonprofit company. It's a company of veterans for veterans. Every veteran faces difficulties when they transition from active duty back to civilian life, and VetLife is there to ease that transition. If you want to reach out to VetLife, you can do so through Instagram or Facebook, or check out their website at vetlifetoday.org. So without further ado, I want to introduce Eddie Murray. Eddie, for the people that don't know you, I want to start all the way in the beginning of your story, like we were just speaking about.
Yep.
You were born and raised in Halifax, and let's just start to talk about like what were you like as a child, what was your family like, and then let's start to create your story.
Well, I grew up in a military family. My father was a, career naval officer in the Canadian Navy, and but he was British, and so he served in the Canadian Navy for 25 years. Served World War II, the Korean War, and when he retired in 1960, he was stationed in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and that's where I was born. I have an older brother and sister that are 9 and 8 years older than me. Kind of the mistake of the family. It came along unexpectedly a little bit later. But anyway, they were born when he was stationed in Victoria, British Columbia, because that's the West Coast naval base for the Canadian Navy. So yeah, he packed up the family. We moved to around Portsmouth, England, and so from 1960 to 70, I basically lived in England. So my athletic years were soccer, rugby, cricket. I mean, that's what I grew up playing, and that was my love. Really, soccer more than rugby, but I loved rugby. I thought it was a very challenging sport, and it was especially younger at that time. I played rugby all the way through college, which was pretty cool for me. Um, but unfortunately, my father passed away when I was 14, and my mother, in her time of grief, wanted to be closer to her relatives, and at that time they were living in Victoria, British Columbia. Some of the relatives that she was close to, so she packed me up. My brother was a teacher in London, and my sister was married to a German and living in Baden-Baden, Germany. So they were in their lives. And so on my 15th birthday, I got on my first airplane ride and flew to Canada, and we moved to Victoria, BC. And that's kind of then, that transitional of, just cultural, new country, background, new relatives, all of these kinds of things, grieving my father and all of that kind of stuff. It was, it was difficult times, a lot of adjusting that I had to do, and thank God I had sports. Sports was my outlet.
Yeah, so I mean, my mother committed suicide when I was young,
Uh,
and those periods in life where you have to go through that pain and that difficulty and like try to figure out the world again, like why did this happen?
Yeah.
Why did what, why is this happening to me? It shatters your worldview, right? Like you almost it shocks you, and then you have to kind of rebuild yourself from a young age. So when you're going through this, you're in athletics before this happens. Do you think that was like an escape that kept you on track? Like, how did you get through the death of your father? There's probably tons of character building there. There's tons of lessons that were learned there. And then you get ripped out and you get moved to a new location,
Hmm.
which I've experienced in my life too. I've been gone to 5 different schools, and that's a shock because you lose all your friends, you lose your comfort, you lose your safety, you lose like the people that know your stories, and now all of a sudden you're a grieving teenager who's going through all this pain and
Right.
you're thrown into a new location like hey make friends with these strangers.
Hmm.
What do you think were the vital things that kept you going and kept you on track during that period of your life? And what were the major differences between England and Canada? Because I'm a gentleman that's never visited England, so was it a big shock culturally?
I was fortunate because of the fact that we moved, of all the cities in Canada, my mother could have moved to. Victoria ended up being the best city for all of those situations that you had brought up. First of all, it's very English-like there. The tea at four, all this kind of stuff. They had soccer and rugby in the schools. And it was very British-like traditional types of things that were going on in the city. And so for me, the change, it was a huge change. I mean, going through everything, I know the things that I had a lot of anger about was the fact that because I'm new now, and so I'm going to a new school, I had to evaluate what my school level was, because actually when I left England, I had finished school. So in that era in England at that time, you would go through school till you're like 15 years old. If you want to go on, you would then, it'd be like AP classes they have here. So at that time, they had a thing where they were called GCEs and CSEs and A and O levels. So you would go, if you wanted to go and try to get advanced courses, how they equated when you went to college and university in England was however many of those degrees, for lack of better words, I'll call them degrees, but they weren't, but like levels of education. So you could have 5 GCEs, 6 CSEs, 10 A levels, and 4 O levels after you go through the next 3 years of school before you go to college. And that is your resume, for lack of better words. That's the only way I can explain it.
That makes perfect sense.
Okay, so if you want to go to Oxford, of course, they have to be all A and O levels. You can't have GCs and CSEs. But you can go to some other different schools with those different types of things, and they plug in what you want to do. That's what they do to evaluate your academic standard. So I didn't want to do that. And the timing of it was okay, this is great. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to now find a job. So when I moved to Victoria, they said, no, you gotta go to school. I mean,
Was there's like a traditional schooling system like ours where you went all the
no,
way to?
exactly right. Yeah. They had 12 grades. And so they figured out that I was about a grade 10 level. So I had 1 year in middle school, junior school, what they called there, but it would be middle school here. So I spent 1 year in middle school, then I went to high school. So I fought that because I wasn't the greatest of students. I just didn't apply myself. My brother was very good because of being a teacher. My sister was a good student also. My thing was, I just didn't learn techniques. I didn't learn studying techniques, and I just really fought school. My whole thing with school was athletics. My world was athletics. That's all it was. And so when I got there, I would hear where I was talking, prefacing earlier with you, the mentor side of it. So I ended up having a coach, my soccer coach in high school, a guy named Joe Beckers, who's still alive today. He ended up like being my dad. Because I fought the fact that because I was new there and people wanted to come and meet me and know who I was, I'm in classes and people come, oh, you're the new kid. Oh, you're from England. Oh, what? And so now I have to go through a little bit of my story. Well, the one thing I didn't want to tell people was that my dad just died. That was my thing. And I didn't want to share that. And so I got to a point that I was really embarrassed and ashamed that I didn't have a father, and then I became resentful that he wasn't around, and my mother, God rest her soul, she didn't want anything to do with school. She was not educated herself. She couldn't read. She could only really write her name. So now I have to take care of her issues, banking, writing letters. She had to write letters back then. There's no Google, no email or anything. So I had to handle her affairs, even though I had some relatives that helped earlier on. But then, when, we weren't from a family of wealth. I mean, we lived with a relative for, about 9 months or so. And then we moved out of their place and we moved into a motel. We didn't even move into an apartment. So I slept on a couch and for a year, while I was going to school. But I didn't find like I was under any kind of duress. I didn't feel, for lack of better words, like poor. I didn't feel I was having fun. I was enjoying my life, but that was my life. And I didn't fight it. I just accepted that's what it was, and I can't do anything about it. I just have to try to be the best son that I could from my mother struggling with losing a husband, going through everything that I went through, leaving a town that she lived in, Portsmouth, leaving family and friends after her husband dies, being with, she's going through what I'm going through. So I didn't resent that. I just tried to do the best that I could. But there were challenges. I mean, not knowing what I was taking on, I just took it on.
So what do you think it was that had you able to handle that situation like so maturely? I mean, you're basically thrown into being the man of the house and you're understanding like levels of acceptance in your psychology that like, you know what, this is what I'm dealt. These are the cards I have to play with. I need to give my best. I need to be there for my mother. I need to, focus on the things I'm strong at. Most kids, when they go through an experience like you, because countless people have this happen to them, it crumbles them. It breaks them to nothing. What is it do you think that allowed you to step up the way that you did? It's amazing hearing your story because I would expect having losing a father at 14 at such a pivotal age. That is when you're like creating your identity for the world. You're starting to really come online, right? You're not a child anymore. What allowed you to rise to the occasion so much? Did you have a really strong family unit initially, or where did that come from?
Well, my mother was Catholic, my father was Protestant, but my mother was a devout Catholic. So every Sunday our faith was there. Um, uh, Brother was altar boys, sister. We were involved in the church, and so that was a definite baseline that is still with me today, and that I still lean on when things like this happen in my life. Um, it wasn't like I became more religious. I just knew that I was going to be taken care of if I just did the right things, worked hard. Um, Even though I didn't put the effort I needed to at school, that was the one thing at that time. I didn't really acknowledge education as being a avenue for me to change my situation. I didn't think so. I looked at sports changing my situation.
So did you believe you were going to be an NFL player when you were a kid?
No, I believed I was going to be more of a soccer player than a kicking footballs. So my love was soccer. So now football comes in. So here it is. I left on my 15th birthday. I go for like a year in school, junior school, playing soccer and rugby and all of that stuff. And teammates of mine that from my other sports that I played other sports. They played hockey, they played lacrosse, they played football. So we had football during school, but it wasn't sponsored by the school or the school district. There was no money in it. So we had a construction company sponsor our team, which was the Saanich Hornets. So they had a bunch of different levels, different teams, and we'd have bingos raising money and all kinds of different things and stuff to raise money. But they basically donated money for uniforms and coaches and all of that kind of stuff. And it was just a outside league. So I didn't really start playing football until maybe after my 16th birthday. 3 years later, I have a full scholarship to go to Tulane. So there are a lot of forks in the road from 16 to 19 that happened for me to have been in that situation because I did not have any aspirations of playing professional football as we know it now. I wanted to play football the other way. Okay. I wanted that round ball to be my life. So, but that's what I thought because, especially growing up in England, everybody wants to be a professional football player, right? That's what you do.
Absolutely. The
It's
World
a
Cup
religion.
is, yeah, exactly. It's a religion in
It's a
itself.
religion. So that's how I thought. So I always had that. Like I'm working to try to be at that level.
I'm going to go somewhere
I'm
with
gonna go somewhere.
athletics.
So at that time, my pivot was the NASL was in play at that time. That's when Pele was playing in it, and Beckenbauer and Gert Mueller, all of these great soccer players from the 60s and 70s are playing now in North America in that league. So I thought, okay, it might not be England where I'm playing, but I'm gonna play somewhere. It was always in the back of my mind that that's what I was going to do. So education was definitely a few down on rungs on the ladder. I didn't just give it that importance that I needed to at the time.
Well, and also, I mean, maybe that's why you made it in athletics, because a lot of the times, if you don't make it your plan A and you don't go, significantly more in than most people, like if you're really focusing, well, I got to have a backup plan and this is probably not going to work out for me. That type of mindset generally doesn't get you to the top.
Right.
It's almost the extremists that are more likely to go, you know what, I'm going to do this somehow.
Hmm.
So, what were the pivotal points then that started to unlock your ability to climb the ladder and get noticed, to get scouted? And then how did it change to football? Like when did someone first tell you, like, you might be able to be a professional American football player versus soccer? Because I can picture the young boy that's passionate about soccer, that wants to get in athletics. You want to be a professional soccer player like Pele, like the people you were naming.
Yeah.
But then at some point, some course of action turns you towards American
Well,
football.
this is the first fork in my life, and maybe the biggest one. So I graduated high school, barely, but I graduate. Joe Becker's kept me online and made sure I at least got, my equivalents to make sure I graduated. So I did. I graduated. So now what, right? So again, I'm not from a family of wealth. Didn't want to go to school. Didn't want to waste my, money doing that. So I went to work. So one of my friend's father owned the lumberyard. So I went and worked at the lumberyard. I would help people, you know, pull things together when they're working on weekend projects, drive forklift, put construction orders together, put them on the trucks and all. Just worked at a lumberyard, and that's what I did. And I was playing football for a couple of years, and my coach, a guy named Frank Hindle, who has since passed, but at the time, there was another league where it was more of a beer league. Now there are guys who are playing, they're 25, 26 years old, and it's like weekend things. They can go out there and just throw the ball around, and it's a beer league. And they were called the Victoria Cougars at that time. And so Frank, who was my coach for the Saanich Hornets, became the coach also then for the Cougars. And he said, "Hey, I think you should go to this thing. The BC Lions of the Canadian Football League, they're having a camp on the island because Victoria is on an island, and they're looking for players to come, coaches to suggest some players come." And I think you should go because if you do well and you could get invited, they're gonna then have a week-long full contact camp in Vancouver. And at the end of that camp, there's gonna be coaches out there that you could maybe get a scholarship. And I think you should go. And I said, wow, really? And we'll go try. So I do. I go to the local one, I get asked to go, and I get the invite to go to this week-long camp. But now I've got to take a week off of work, right? So I go to my friend's dad who owned the lumberyard, and he goes, Ed, what the hell's going on? I said, I need you, and I go, well, I'd love to go. And he goes, well, what's going to happen when you go to this thing? And I'm going, I'm going to get a scholarship and I'm going to go to college, lying through my teeth. That's what I was doing. All I wanted to do was go to Vancouver with my high school friends who left, went to Vancouver to go to college or work, and go party with them. So I went to one a days. I didn't go to two a days. I didn't go to the morning practice. I think I went to one. So anyway, long story short, Cal Murphy was the head coach of the BC Lions. So the BC Lions ran this camp, and it was called a development camp. And what they did was, it was kind of a way to like showcase younger talent for local colleges. Simon Fraser University, University of British Columbia. They had some schools, smaller schools over in Washington State that would come to this thing. And so the dad, I convinced the dad to give me the week off of work. I go, and I'm going to practice. And so the last day we were having a scrimmage, right? These coaches were there, and they were there. There was, I don't know, maybe 8 coaches from different schools. And at halftime, we didn't go to locker rooms. We just went to the sidelines. There's, I don't know, maybe 80 kids at this camp. And Coach Murphy comes over to me and he goes, hey, are you the kid from Victoria that I heard that could kick? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, I haven't seen you much this week, but I'd love to see you kick because you were someone that I was told that I should check out. Do you mind kicking for me? And I'm going, hell no. And he goes, all right, let's find a snapper and a holder and let's go kick. So they grabbed a bunch of balls that other people were kicking. So they had a snapper and holder and start kicking extra points. And we went back to the 20-yard line. We're moving. And as we're moving back, the camp is like horseshoeing around me, right? And they're yelling and screaming and giving me the business. So I go all the way back to like 52 yards before I miss. And so Coach Murphy goes, okay, that's enough. Okay, let's back, finish the scrimmage. We do, we go back. So I'm getting ready to, shower, get on the bus, take the ferry back over to the island to Victoria, go back to my life, go see my mom. She wasn't doing well, all this kind of stuff. And coach comes up and says, "Hey, Coach Murphy wants to see you in his office." So I go into his office. He goes, that was pretty impressive what you did. You didn't know I was going to do it. Everybody yelling and screaming. You didn't miss until you got back really far. And I was really impressed that I want to invite you to training camp this year. And I go, what? And he goes, yeah, I'd like to invite you. We have in the Canadian League at that time. So this is 1976 now. Okay. They had what was called a junior rule. You could bring a junior player to training camp, which was anyone who was in college, high school, whatever it is, a younger player, you could bring them to camp. And if they made the team, they could then sign a contract, or they would put their contract into place and they would be paid, and you would not be playing college football anymore. And there was maybe just 2 or 3 people who that ever happened, but it was just a way for them to open up, the opportunities for kids to be seen. So he goes, "Are you interested in coming?" I'm going, "Hell yeah, what the hell?" And so he said, "We'll have our general manager call you because you have to sign a contract, but you're not going to get anything until you make the team, and if you make the team." So general manager calls me up, says, "Hey, here's the contract. If you make the team, you're going to get $500 signing bonus, and you're going to make $11,000 your first year." And I'm going, "Holy shit, this is great. Unbelievable." Again, 1976, right? Well, at that time, the Canadian League, it was a part-time job. It wasn't like you would think football was. They worked. Almost every Canadian League football player back at that time worked during the day, and they would go to practice like at 4 or 5 o'clock at night. They wouldn't, meet. No, it was very, very low lying kind of football, just how they organized it at that time. So I know I've signed this contract. I'm back at work.
Yeah, you tell your friend the boss.
Right. So I'm going, I said, "Hey, I've been offered to go to camp." And he goes, "Hey, that's great." So my world was, again, I'd get up, I'd catch the bus. We didn't have a car. My mother couldn't drive, and I didn't have a car. And so I'd catch the bus, go to work, catch the bus, go see my mom in hospital sometimes, and that she was, had some setbacks. I'd go see her in the hospital, go catch the bus, go home, grab dinner, and go to bed. Get up the next day, go to work, catch the bus, and that was my life. And then I would squeeze in some workouts and kicking and stuff like that at night, and that's what I was doing, getting ready to go to training camp. All of a sudden, I get this phone message from a coach named Willard Wells from Tulane University. Now, again, there's no Google. I can't Google Tulane. Where the hell's Tulane? I never heard of Tulane. And so I just didn't pay attention. I said, "Give me a call back." That's all he was saying. "Give me a call back." Well, I wasn't. I was going to call. I'm going, "Hey, I'm going to play football in the Canadian League," And he ends up catching me on a weekend I had off. And he said, "Hey, I'll introduce myself. I'm an assistant coach at Tulane University. I was wondering if you may be interested in coming on a recruiting trip." And I'm going, "Nope, not." He goes, "Really?" And I go, "No, I have no interest at all." He goes, "Well, if you change your mind, keep my number and give me a call." "Yeah, no problem." I don't write his number down. I don't do anything, nothing. So now training camp's coming up. I'm getting ready to go. Training camp's in Penticton, British Columbia, which is kind of like the Napa Valley of Canada. It's up in the mountains. It's gorgeous. Freshwater lakes, vineyards all over the place. Beautiful place. So I go to camp. Well, rosters back then, I think there were 38-man rosters they used to have in the Canadian League. So you had to play another position. You couldn't be just a kicker and a punter. There were a handful of guys that did that, but not many. A lot of them were wideouts, or they were DBs, or whatever they were, and they kicked and punted and played a position. So I was asked to play a position. So I've only had 2 years of sandlot football, basically. I'm trying out for a professional Canadian League team, trying to play a position. Mother's sick at home. I'm 18 years old. And after about a week, and I wasn't doing well, um, all of a sudden this guy comes up to me I was getting ready for practice, going out and warming up to go kick. And this guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, I want to introduce myself. I'm Willard Wells from Tulane University." And I'm going, "Holy crap." He goes, "Look, I know you're getting ready. Let's talk afterwards." And so going through practice, I was playing slot back, which is kind of like the guy in motion. If you've been Canadian football, there's always guy in motion. I was playing that. And dropped some passes, had a really bad kicking session, just wasn't into it. My mother had a turn. She was put back in the hospital again. My aunt told me that she was back in the hospital. So I realized I shouldn't be there. And it was during practice. And I went over to Coach Murphy and I said, "Hey, Coach, I appreciate you giving me this opportunity, but I shouldn't be here. I'm not ready for this." And he goes, "I know you're not. I know you're not. See Coach Wells over there? Go over and talk to him." So I did. I went over, talked to Coach Wells, told him my situation. "Hey, I'm interested. Give me some details." And he goes, "Well, I'd love to bring you down on a recruiting trip. Check us out so you can see what everything is. If you want to do this, we're offering you a full scholarship to go to Tulane." And I thought, okay, I have one stipulation. I need to go home and I need to go see my mom before I leave. And so I go see her, tell her what's going on. She was real excited at a school, I could maybe go to school. And so now, how does that all work out, right? Who the hell is Willard Wells? Well, here's the fork in the road. Cal Murphy, before he was the head coach of the BC Lions, was at San Jose State as the head coach. One of his assistant coaches was Willard Wells. So when he left to take the job in Vancouver for the BC Lions, like most coaches, when a new coach comes into a college, they keep some of the old coaches. Well, Willard was the recruiting guru. So they kept him because he was the one who was keeping all the relationships up with the recruits from Cal Murphy's tenure there. So he was there for like 3 or 4 years, maybe afterwards, and got replaced like most things happen. The new coach brings in someone he knows and all that kind of stuff. And Willard's now without a job. Larry Smith had just been hired as the head coach at Tulane University, and one of his new assistants was Willard Wells. Willard is from Powell River, British Columbia, which today still doesn't have a traffic light in it. It's an Indian reservation and a logging town. It's a blip on the map. It's way up in the interior of British Columbia. But that's, of all things, that's where he's from. So when he signs at Tulane, he leaves San Jose and he needs to go and get ready for spring football. Wants to go see his family back in Powell River before he moves to New Orleans. Flies into Vancouver, and you have to drive or you take a seaplane. That's the only way to get to the Powell River. So he's going to drive up and to see his family. And he thought, I'm going to stop by and see my old head coach, Cal Murphy, before I go up, right? Just stop in, stick my head in, say hi, which he does. He goes into the office, sees Cal. Cal's looking at film of me kicking at that camp. And he said, "Who is that?" And he said, "This is a junior kid we're going to bring to training camp." And you mean that guy has eligibility? Coach Smith just gave me the responsibilities of kickers at Tulane. I need him. We don't have a kicker at Tulane. That's how I got found. Because my people always ask me, how did you get from Victoria, British Columbia to Tulane University? And that's the simplest way of putting that story.
That is incredible. All of the things that had to line up perfectly, the time that he arrived, the fact that your coach was watching the tape, the fact that you had that incredible day where you were just on every single dot aligned to create that moment.
Yeah.
So then you ended up taking the offer to go to Tulane. I was reading
Yeah.
about you. You went to Tulane University. Where's Tulane
It's in
located?
New Orleans.
In New
Yeah,
Orleans. So you went down to New Orleans, you're
Yep.
playing now at Tulane, and now at this point, did it start to switch in your brain like, hey, I might be a professional American football player? Or did you still have a dream a little bit around soccer? Or was that fork in the life? Okay, now I'm going to be a football player. I'm going to go to the top. When you were at Tulane, did you expect to get to the NFL? How many people from university at that point were able to go? Because, like, kids nowadays, when they look at the NFL, it seems like such a fragment of a percent of a chance that people can get there. But you were saying I was the young kid that was like, I'm going to do something with athletics. I'm going to get there. And now all of a sudden you just got to university. And I mean, like you said, from your mother's perspective, a woman that, that was limited in the amount of education she had,
Mhm.
finding out her son is going to university from athletics, crushing it. What did that next stage of your life look like?
Well, again, another setback happened because my mother died about a month before I left for Tulane. So she didn't get to see me go to college. She didn't get to see me walk down the aisle and get my degree at Tulane, which is maybe the proudest thing I ever did. Um, but I had my mentor. I had Joe Beckers. He was that person on my shoulder, and I remembered him sitting right before I was getting ready to go to school, and he just says, "Look, Ed, I know you can do this. Okay, I believe in you. You have to take advantage of everything that Tulane University athletic department will give you to get your degree. They got to have tutors. They got to have whatever it is. You just need to learn how to study. Okay, you can do it. You're smart enough to do it. So take advantage of it." And he said, "Don't fuck it up." Is really what he said. Is just don't mess it up. You have an unbelievable opportunity. You've been dealt a shit hand. Okay, the timing of everything with your mom passing and everything wasn't great. Um, and but go down there and just apply yourself. That's it. I know you can do it because you apply yourself when you come to your sports. You're very focused, you're very driven, you have no problems working out and doing all the things that you need to do to be a great athlete, which you are. Take that same passion and get your degree. Then you have something. Then you have something. I know you have aspirations of being professional something, okay? But get your degree first. Get your degree first and let the cards fall as they may afterwards. And like I said, I got my degree in 4 years. It was the hardest thing I had to do. It really was. It was very difficult, but I did. I learned techniques. They taught me techniques to study and to apply myself for my degree. I wanted to be a teacher, wanted to be a coach, wanted to work with handicapped kids. So I specialized in special education, got a history minor, and I did. But the thing that helped me again was another situation. So Tulane was smart, and Coach Wells was, God rest his soul. He was really smart when I went down there. I went about 2 weeks before training camp started for the football season. And Coach Wells billeted me with a family. They were the Petersons family, Anar and Jean Peterson. And Anar had been a long time Tulane. He attended Tulane back in the 40s. He was the director of the student union, which is where, like you'd have a cafeteria and pool tables and the swimming pool was there and just a bunch of student activity. And he oversaw the building. And Jean was the information lady in the building. They're just souls of the earth, just unbelievable. Um, Religious family, um, Norwegian background because it was Peterson, but it was Pedersen was their is like Pedersen, and they took me into their family fold immediately. They have 6 kids. All the kids took me in. I'm part of the Peterson family today. I still keep in contact with all of them and their kids and their grandkids and all of this stuff. I mean, it's just and that was the smartest thing he did. And I embraced it because I needed it. I needed a family unit at that time because it was like I had no identity. But they took me in, and I'm almost certain Coach Wells said, told. Of course, they told the Peterson family my situation, so I didn't have to do it. So all of that, okay, they never really brought it up. They just said, "Hey, we're here for you, whatever you need." And so I was always going to dinner at their house for 4 years. Their home was right beside the campus, and so I would go in between classes. I'd stop by and go in and see Miss Jean at the information desk. I'd go see Aner at back. I became part of their family, and that really helped me in my situation at Tulane. Making the change again, another cultural thing. I mean, moving to the United States, New Orleans is a melting pot of culture with food and music and everything that it had at that time. French Quarter, everything was just mind blowing for me at that time. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed my time at Tulane. New Orleans is a fun place to go to school, and it was a great experience.
So now when you're at Tulane and you graduate, you get your degree, are you already looking at the NFL at the end of that, or were you being scouted at that point? Or how does that jump happen? Because you're obviously playing for Tulane.
Yeah.
Were you a standout at Tulane where you were really making some headlines and doing well? Did you have a good athletic career there? And then how did that next stage start to happen that propelled you into the NFL? Because that's I'll tell you what, growing up in America, that was the American dream. Like growing up and being a football player,
Yeah.
that was the American. In England, it's a soccer player. Well, it's a football player, right?
Right.
But for them, the dream is soccer. Here, it's to grow up and become a professional athlete. When did the transition start to take place? You're like, this is what I'm going to be able to do. Because, like you said, one of the proudest moments of your life was getting your degree and just going, hey, I got a scholarship to university and I graduated.
Yeah.
That's a big thing. And your mother and father would be incredibly proud of that, knowing that their child was the one that did that. How does the NFL come into the picture?
Well, I'm very fortunate because, like I told you, when Coach Wells was assigned to handle the kickers, he wasn't lying. They didn't really have a kicker. Walters was the kicker who was there before. He was a straight on guy, great guy, senior, but he wasn't very good. Didn't have a whole lot of power. And when I came in, I just totally changed the whole landscaping of kicking. And
So you got
never
to start,
I played every game in college for 4 years. Yeah, I started as a
walked
freshman.
on the team.
So full scholarship, came right in, made an impact immediately. Um, I was red hot for lack of better words, and just continued to just keep smoldering for 4 years. And so, all the accolades of, I was all South Independent, which is because we were an independent school at that time. We were in a conference, and so I was 4-time independent first team, and uh, um, honorable all American, all of those kinds of things. So now coming out as a senior, and we were 9-2 my senior year. We were 15th in the nation. We lost to Penn State in the Liberty Bowl 9-6, all field goals. Had a great game. Didn't miss any kicks in the game. So coming out now in 1980 in that draft, I mean, it's not like it is now. There's no NFL TV. There, we weren't. The draft wasn't televised. The draft wasn't even on the radio at that time. So coming out, I was getting some notice from. I was getting worked up by some coaches. Got an interesting story about Bill Belichick. If you want me to go into that?
Yeah, no,
So,
definitely.
at that time they had scouts and position coaches would come and look at you, and they had a scouting system called Bledsoe system. And if you're a Bledsoe scout, you scouted for like 5 teams. And so all the teams would give the Bledsoe scout who they needed to go see, and they would write reports up on them. So there are Bledsoe scouts and all that kind of stuff. But if you got an individual coach to come and see you, then you were a focus of theirs. That was what I was told by the sports information director at that time. So the only individual coach that I had come see me was Bill Belichick. So in 1980, Bill Belichick was a special teams coach for the New York Giants with Bill Parcells.
Oh my God, Bill Belichick and Bill Parcells, these are legends.
Right. So I get a call from the sports information director saying, "Hey, Ed, look, there's a position coach that's come here and they've requested that you work out for them. It's a big deal. When are you available on such a day?" "Oh, I'm here." So I go, and it's Coach Belichick. So he puts me through like a bunch of like drills, like just football drills, shuttle drills and cone stuff. And after like 30 minutes, I'm running around, like a chicken with his head cut off. And I go, "Coach, you know, I'm a fucking kicker, right? And he goes, I know you are. I go, why am I doing all these drills? He said, I just want to see that, to see your athleticism. Okay. Bear with me. He said, look, are you free tomorrow so I can watch you kick? Okay. And I go, yeah, I'm free. So what are you doing tonight? I'm going, I don't know. I'm just final coming up. You know, I'm just gonna do some studying, get ready. And I was married at the time. I was married in college from a girl from Victoria. And he said, I'd like to take you and your wife out to dinner. And as a college student, going out to dinner was a big deal. You didn't have the money, you know.
Count me in.
So, of all things, he goes, okay, I'm going to make reservations at the Quarter Two Sisters in the French Quarter. So you're going to a French Quarter restaurant? And the Quarter Two Sisters was owned by the Brennan's family, which we knew. The Brennan's family, they owned Commander's Palace. They owned all these huge French cuisine, Creole restaurants, and were big, huge restaurateurs. And their son, Owen Brennan, was a freshman on the football team at that time. So it was a huge thing to have one of the Brennan's kids playing for the team. So anyway, so oh my God, Quarter Two Sisters, that's unbelievable. Well, great Creole. So he does. He takes us to the Quarter Two Sisters, and he's chatting up my wife. You know, he just kept asking her questions. He's not like talking to me. He's talking to her.
You're going, this guy's making me run
going,
athletic drills. He's talking to my wife. He doesn't know what he's doing.
On my wife, you know, and all this stuff, you know. And so have a nice meal, everything, you know, but he was, you know, he was talking to her a lot, you know, asking her a lot of questions, family things, what do you want to do, just, you know, anyway. So next day I go and I kick and everything for him and do well. And so now fast forward, it's the day of the draft. So the sports information director said, hey, look, um, I've been asked by a bunch of different teams, coaches, scouting systems. What's your number to call if you know, so they know how to get a hold of you if they draft you and all this stuff. Just want to confirm this is your number. Yeah, it is. Okay, stay by your phone, see what happens. So draft's going on. Again, it's not on radio. It's not like I can listen or watch it. Right. So I'm just sitting there and I'm studying.
Do you think you're getting a call?
Well, there were three players my senior year. There was myself, a wide receiver named Alton Alexis, and our quarterback, Rock Hontus. Rock was going to go on and be a doctor. He ended up being a orthopedic surgeon for Tulane for their athletics, so a phenomenal surgeon. And so we were like the three main guys that were said that we could be potentially drafted. Now, the other preface with that, during the senior, you know, there's the Senior Bowl, which is an all-star game. There's the East-West Shrine Bowl, which is an all-star game. There's the Combine, okay, so that you'd go to, so I didn't get invited to anything. I didn't go to the Combine, didn't play in any all-star games, no anything, had no feel for where I may be drafted or if I would be drafted because of that. So so now the draft comes around, time's going by, a couple of people kept calling, hey, get drafted yet, get drafted. I go, no, I haven't, just leave me alone, you know. So all of a sudden I get this call and it's Coach Belichick. And he goes, hey, Eddie, it's the fourth round and Coach Parcells wanted me to give you a call and say that you're going to be our fifth round pick. So when our pick comes around for the fifth round, we're just getting ready to round up the fourth round, but you're going to be our fifth round pick. So at that time, I think the Giants had like the fifth pick of the draft and the Lions had the first pick because they took Billy Sims. And so I'm going, oh, great. You know, I'm going to be a Giant. So time goes by, phone rings, it's Coach Belichick. He goes, hey, Ed, just want to tell you, someone dropped to us we didn't expect. So we took him in the fifth round, and you're going to be our sixth round pick. Okay. So just hang tight. Okay. We'll get back with you. Time goes by. Phone rings. It's Coach Belichick. He goes, Ed, you're not going to believe it. Someone else fell to us. Coach Parcells feels really bad about it. But we took someone else in the sixth round. So at that time in 1980, there were 12 rounds. So they did 6 rounds the first day and 7 through 12 the second day. So Coach Parcells told Coach Belichick, look, call Eddie up at the end of the draft. He's going to be our 7th-round pick. We're not changing anybody, okay? There's only 4 or 5 picks ahead. There's no one that we're going to think we're not going to change. Ed's going to be our 7th-round pick. Tell him he's in. So he does. He calls me up and goes, Ed, you and your wife go celebrate, go out and have a good time. And my wife had a cousin who was in town who played professional hockey, played for the Hartford Whalers, a guy named Mike Rogers. And he and his wife were in town from Calgary visiting us. So we go down to the French Quarter, we live it up, enjoy all of the great things that French Quarter got to offer. We had Pat O'Brien's, just everything. We roll in. God, it had to be like 7 in the morning. We roll in, and not feeling any pain at all. And about an hour or so later, phone rings, and it's someone from the Detroit Lions saying, Ed, I'm whoever I am, and what were your stats your junior year? We can't find them. And I'm in a fog. I'm trying to remember what I did, so I give him the stats. I hang up and I'm going, God, what the hell? I want to get some rest, 10 minutes later, someone else from the Lions called me. Ed, what were your stats your senior year? We can't find them, all this kind of stuff. So I tell him again, I'm going, well, they just fucking leave me alone. I'm going to be a giant, quit fucking calling me. And then about 20 minutes later, the draft opens up and the Lions have the first pick of this next day and they draft me.
Wow. After you were already out celebrating, I'm being a giant, I'm playing for Belichick and Parcells.
So I get drafted. So I'm going, I can't believe. So I'm happy when I'm not happy, right? And about 10 minutes later, I get a call from Coach Belichick. He goes, Ed, we fucked up. He said, I know you're going to come back to haunt me. I know you are. You got an opportunity. Good luck. Who knows what's going to happen? But we should have taken you earlier. But, congratulations. I just wanted to give you a call. Good luck to you. So the reason why I'm bringing the story up, so about 3 years ago, now I haven't seen Coach Belichick. I'd played against him a couple of times. And you know him, he's very stoic. He's not going to acknowledge it kind of thing, right? So, and I played, against him. And about 3 years ago in preseason, they played New England. And my wife and my now daughter, who's 24, were on the sidelines and we're watching the preseason game and it's warm-ups. And my wife knows the story that I just finished telling you, and my daughter does. And my wife goes, oh my God, there's Coach Belichick. He's walking down out of the tunnel because we were just to the side of the tunnel. And she said, go over and say hi to him. I'm going, I'm not going to go say hi to him. He's not going to know who the hell I am. I haven't seen him in 35 years. I mean, it's been forever. And so, because I walk out of the tunnel and the visitors' bench is across the field. So I thought he would just go here, and I'm here. I can't see him. Well, of all things, he starts walking down the sideline of the Lions, and he's like now 10 feet away from me. And it was like someone pushed me, but I don't know how. I got through the crowd, and I got into on the field, and he's like right in front of me. He's like 10 feet away from me. And I'm going, Coach Belichick. And he turns around, he sees me, and he gets this big old smile on his face, and he comes over and he gives me a big hug. And I'm going, no, I haven't seen the man I've been retired 20 years at that time, or like 18 years. And I hadn't played in the league. It's been, like I said, 30 some odd years since we've really had any 1980 when we've had a relationship, right? For knowing each other. And he goes, oh my God, Eddie, how are you doing? He goes, do you remember I took you to dinner to the Court of Two Sisters? And I was dumbfounded that he could recall that incident with me in an instant. And that's why Coach Belichick is Coach Belichick. That's why he's as good as he is. He remembered me and remembered taking me and my wife, and he remembered the name of the restaurant from 1980 in an instant.
Instantly by seeing you now, who he hadn't seen in 35 years. Bam, that's Eddie. I remember. Unbelievable. That's an incredible mental sharpness that people won't even understand.
I know, and that's why he is what he is. He's such a detailed person. He remembers all these little things, and he just he turned over every rock and crook and cranny to look for talent and make them successful. And that's why he is what he is.
So let's talk about your time in the league. So now you are in the NFL, your dream has come true. You are a professional athlete, maybe not the
Yep.
original soccer dream, but you're a professional athlete. You have your family. You're still with the woman that you were with when you were younger, right?
Yes, we're
Okay.
married still with
Still
him.
married. You have a child at that time when you first get in
We
the
had
league?
a son my rookie year. Yeah, he was born during training camp, my rookie year in August. And so he's 41 now. Um,
So you're on top of the world at this point. You're in the NFL. You've got a beautiful family. You're the same young boy that said, you know what, maybe God has a plan for me. Maybe this life is going to work out okay for me. You know, I've been dealt a shit hand, but like maybe there's some beauty down the road. You're living that life now. With that all coming to your life so fast and being on such an opposite end of the spectrum, were you able to keep a pretty level head while you were in the league? You know, do you feel like you had a good run through there with your career and mentally? Some people, when they make that huge jump into a new level of stardom and money and success and fame, they kind of struggle mentally with that transition. You know, but it sounds like you really had your life together. You got a woman by your side. You have a son being born at home. You know, you go to the Lions first, and then how you know you can just talk about your NFL career.
Yeah,
What
I
your
mean, again, a lot of fortunate things, a lot of, again, I use the term fork in the road, but I mean, an opportunity is really what presents itself because there are numerous stories. Like I always use Nick Lowry, who kicked in the league during my era. Nick tried out for 7 teams before he made it with Kansas City. So my rookie year, again, I was fortunate. It was again, um, Coach Clark, Monty Clark was the head coach at the time. It was his second year in his position as the head coach. The year before they were 2-14, not a good team. Got the first pick, took Billy Sims, Heisman Trophy, all of this stuff, changed the landscape of the Lions very quickly with Billy. Um, but my situation was Benny Ricardo was the incumbent kicker there at the time. Benny was trying to renegotiate a new contract at the time. So when training camp started, we were in camp for, I don't know, about a week or so, and Benny decided to walk out on a contract dispute. So he walked out right before preseason started. Um, I ended up going like 15 for 18 during preseason and solidified that they didn't really need Benny. They found their kicker for the year. And so I just hung on to Billy Sims' coattail that year, putting in a lot of positions to kick. We attempted a lot of field goals. Wasn't as accurate as I ended up becoming at the time, but I had such a phenomenal rookie year. I get voted into the Pro Bowl my rookie year,
wow.
which is, at that time in the 80s, you got voted in by the players voted you in. Now it's, people can vote in and media does it and all that kind of stuff. But at that time, the players voted you in. That was all it was.
What an honor.
So to be recognized, Billy Sims went with me and Bubba Baker was my rookie year. But the thing that really catapulted me, I was voted MVP in the Pro Bowl game. I was the first rookie to be ever voted MVP in the Pro Bowl game. So a lot of things happened very, very fast for me. And so yeah, there were a lot of external things all flying around, coming, endorsements, appearances, all of these kinds of things. And I just really tried to handle it as best I could. Um, I wasn't very good at saying no. So I know it was affecting family life with doing a lot of the things that I was doing, but I was doing it because I always thought, look, football's not a job. It's it's a sport that I get paid to play. It's not a job. So I was always cognitive of that. It's a very tenuous situation. And especially being my position, kicker and punter in the NFL, you're either employed or you're unemployed. All other positions have backups. I don't have a backup. So I'm either healthy enough or I'm kicking well enough to keep my job. If I'm not, I'm gone. And then I have to, so that was very prevalent in my thought process. So I became very attuned to really working on my craft. and trying to become always a better kicker each year, not knowing I was going to play 19 years in the NFL. But the other thing I was very conscious was I always took a job in the offseason,
Wow.
which a lot of athletes didn't do. And I remembered like it's today. Um, there was a promotional event WJR had where they had a bowling contest, and they'd have a WJR personality, a sports celebrity, and then they would have someone who would write in to get their name pulled to be a part of this event. And it was at the Allen Park bowling lanes, which was where they used to have professional bowling tournaments and stuff. And so I'm playing in this event, and they remembered sitting down with some of the other sports celebrities that were there. And so back then, it was Joe Schmidt, Jimmy David, Alex Delvecchio from the Red Wings. They were all at this event, and I just love talking to the older players and seeing what it was like back then compared to what it is now, and just those stories. And I was, hot that rookie year, and I remember Joe Schmidt saying, "Hey, Ed, what are you going to do in the offseason?" And I said, "Well, I think I'm going to go back to Victoria." And he goes, "What are you going to do back there?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. I'm going to get a job." And he goes, "Why don't you just stay here? Because Detroit's great with its athletes. They love their athletes here. Why don't you make roots in Detroit and see what happens?" Because he was a rep. He was a manufacturer's rep. Jimmy David was a rep. Alex DeVecchio had his own advertising specialties and premiums company. So they were great examples of what they did. They made roots. And that ended up being the smartest thing I did. I stayed. And my theory was, you know, how this isn't, how long is this going to be, that I'm going to do this? So if I make some roots here, that things could really, you know, be comforting for me. I wasn't enamored with having to go back to Victoria to lay roots. I was very open to moving anywhere, and just why not there? And the other thing that I did was, off season, I'm a big golfer, so I love playing golf. So I'm always at all of the charity events on Mondays. So early in my career, I remember going to these events and having a great time with the groups that I'd be playing with. But I started noticing, the other celebrities that were playing in these things, how they acted at these things. Some of these guys weren't really, you know, cordial, for lack of better words. They were getting a little too drunk and getting a little too vocal, and weren't really spending much time with their group afterwards. They would go hang out with their buddies and keep drinking more and all that kind of stuff. And I remember going, this is an unbelievable opportunity that we have. You know, the people that support these events, and come to participate at these outings, they're not the rummies at the course, at the company, I should say. They're C-level people. They're management people because they can afford to take the day off of work to go play in these outings. So I kept thinking, um, I'm going to take business cards from these people, okay? And I would take a business card, and I'd always, like what you do, write a little note, and sometimes it could be so I'd go home afterwards and I'd write a note to them. "Hey, Jimmy, great putt on 15. Had a great time with you at the American Cancer Society tournament. Hey, Tom, hope you don't mind. I told your joke already a couple of times already. Had a great time, had a great time meeting you at the cancer tournament." And so I keep a Rolodex of these, and started to kind of upsell it. So I got in the habit at Christmas time, I'd write them a Christmas card. Say, "Hey, Merry Christmas to you, Tom. Hopefully I'll look forward to seeing you at the Cancer Society tournament next year at Indianwood." So I'm just connecting, networking with these people. Because my theory was, how do I know I'm not playing with my next boss?
You stayed in such a humble state, such a grateful, thankful, proud of your opportunities, forward thinking, what could be next down the pipeline. That is not the norm. That is not the norm. Usually people get caught up in their own hype. They get caught up in their situation. They think it's going to last forever. They think the money and the glory and the attention, all that. You were like so ahead of the curve. Do you think that stems back to just your childhood and like having lost things before and having things taken from you? It's, well, I'm just amazed by the mindset you're in. I could tell when I met you today, within 30 seconds, I'm like, this is such a personable guy. You could easily, stand more proud than everybody else. And I did this, this, and this, and people need to, but you're just such a personable guy. Where do you think that comes from?
Well, I think being brought up military has a lot to do with it. My dad wasn't dad, he was sir, number one. Um, Being humble, being respectful, but also helping out others that need help. Um, Even though you might not have all the means to do it, sometimes just uh, lending an ear to someone is more powerful than giving them money.
Effort goes such a long way. When you
Right.
when you wrote those cards to you, that's such a simple task. You took the time to be genuine and write a card based on an interaction you had with a human being. To that person receiving that card, for you to even think of them enough to do that, that's a huge statement. That's not the norm. That's something that's special. I guarantee you those people were incredibly thankful and they remember that. You know what I mean? And that's that little bit of effort. That's the little bit, I can make an impact. I can make a difference. Like you said, even if you don't all have many resources, you can give your energy and time. 100%. That's
Well, you know, sometimes, unfortunately, people do things because they want something out of the action that they're doing. I wrote those cards not wanting anything. I just sincerely had a great time with them. And it was the only way I knew to express a genuine thank you, because I was always cognitive of the bigger picture. They expanded money and effort to support a charity, and I wanted to thank them for that. I think that's a noble thing to do.
100%. And that the authenticity of your motive, which is just being genuine, is what makes it powerful.
Right.
Because, like you said, it's not being driven by something. It's by you being like, man, like what you're doing is important to me. So maybe you being able to hang out with me that day and golf together, maybe that was important to you, but we shared something there. You know what I mean? That's special. So then you're in an NFL career. Yeah, I read online that 19 years in the league is absolutely incredible. The first time you got traded, because you probably started to grow roots here in Michigan, you were a Lions fan. You probably adopted it once. At first you're like, I was supposed to be a Giant, but you became a part of the Lions culture.
Absolutely.
So the first time you get traded, was that a difficult period?
Well, term wise, I never got traded. I've never been traded. I've been released by teams and then picked up. So when I got let go by Detroit after they drafted Jason Hanson in the second round, I kind of knew my fate. I knew I wouldn't be around. So then it was just kind of trying to find, the next chapter. I still had a desire to continue to keep playing, and
How many years were you on the line before?
12 years I
12
played here.
years, that's what it
Yeah,
is.
and then my sequence of teams is I went to play for Tampa Bay the following year, played half a season with them, went to training camp with them. Sam Weiss was the coach at that time. Made it all the way down to the final cut, and got released by Tampa. And then 2 weeks later, got picked up by the Cowboys during the Super Bowl run for the Super Bowl 28 and 93. Then played for Philly 94, went to Washington 95. Then I was actually out a year. I didn't play. And then the following year, went to Minnesota. Didn't play again. I retired from the league. I put my retirement into the league. And then I got a call from the Dallas Cowboys asking me to come out of retirement, which I do. And I played the last 4 games of the year with them. And then the following year, I got a call back up. Oh, I'm sorry. Played with, yeah, I went Philly, then Washington, then didn't play, then Minnesota, didn't play, then picked up by Dallas, and then picked up by Washington again in 2000. So played the last 7 games there with Norv Turner. Norv was the offensive coordinator with the Cowboys, and then I played the 1 year with Washington when Norv was there too. So just just kind of got into that leg for hire situation. And then the league changed when the new system, the new collective bargaining changed with the free agency system that they have now in 94. So I was actually Philadelphia's first ever free agent signee for them. So that situation, was something I didn't like. I didn't like being in that kind of like for hire situation. I wanted something a little bit more stable, for lack of better words, but it just wasn't made up that way. It was a hard cap. They weren't bringing older players in. They would bring them in, after the fact kind of thing. And like I said, I was 44 when I retired, so I had nothing, no regrets, no anything.
Yeah, you had a hell of
19 years longer than I thought I would, and was very blessed.
So I gotta talk about like I told you before the podcast, I grew up in Philadelphia, but I was a Cowboys fan. Like I had Troy Aikman jersey, Emmett Smith, Michael Irvin, Deion came a little bit later, Deion Sanders a little later.
Yeah.
But I mean, those were especially for the Cowboys, those were like the glory days of the Cowboys.
Yeah.
What was it like to be on America's team and play in the Super Bowl? I mean, I need you to try to encapsulate or like try to tell somebody that'll never experience a moment like that. Like, what was that like working up that season and then playing in the championship game on the number one team in the world? What was that
It
like?
definitely, it was mind altering because it was different. Of all the years I played and all the teams I played with, and years that I played, that Super Bowl year with the Cowboys was insane. So they had won the year before, of course. They were in the World Bowl and had that big blowout, 52 to whatever game against Buffalo. And so when I actually signed the same day as Emmett Smith. So Emmett was holding out for a contract. And um, what was I'm trying to remember who was the kicker. Ken Willis, I believe, was the kicker who was there before, and was having a really tough preseason, even though he had won the Super Bowl with them the year before, and had a real tough preseason. Wasn't doing well. The first game of the year, the Cowboys lost to the Redskins at RFK. Didn't play well. The following week was the home opener, and it was a Super Bowl rematch against the Buffalo Bills in Dallas. And the game was going back and forth to a point where Ken Willis had missed a field goal or so in the game. And I remember Coach Johnson in a press conference afterwards, knowing during the game that he was going to cut him after the game. So he made his decision. He was moving on from Ken. But the situation of the game came down that it was driving and they were 3 points behind. And instead of kicking a field goal, they went for a fourth down and didn't make it and lost the game. And that's when he knew, okay, I got to make a change. We got to do something at that time. We got to sign Emmett because Emmett had been holding out the whole year, wasn't at training camp, anything. So they did. They brought a bunch of kickers in. I was one of the guys who came in. They signed me and they signed Emmett, and we went on to be 12-4. We went on about 12-2 with Emmett and I coming into the fold. But everything was different about it because I remember the very first game we played the Cardinals away in Arizona, and so everything was one of the automatic difference was before we left Dallas, we had gotten our room key for a hotel in Arizona, but they gave it to us in Dallas, which we'd never had. Because the normal procedure was, you would fly in, the buses would be behind the plane and you walk off the back of the plane, on the tarmac, get on the bus, and bus would go to the hotel, drive up to the front of the hotel, and you get out, and there's a handful of mom, pop, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, friend kind of thing, and there might be, say, 50 people waiting, with people that you might have. And so you walk into the hotel, there'd be a table, there'd be a name with your room key in there. You go grab it, you go to the elevator, you go up to your room. 99.9% of the teams, that's what it was like. So the first road game, I get my key before I get on the bus going to the airplane. And I thought, well, this is kind of funny. I'm not really thinking about it. And get off the plane, buses are there like they normally are, driving up to the hotel. And I remember looking out the bus going, what the hell's going on at the hotel? I'm looking closer and getting closer. There had to be 5,000 people at the hotel. just standing outside waiting for us to pull up. Now, we didn't pull up to the front of the hotel. We went to the freight entrance, went through freight elevators, didn't go through the lobby. There were sheriffs everywhere on all the floors, making sure people wouldn't sneak into the hotels or anything. We never went to the lobby at all. Everything was cordoned off with curtains, with dividers, with police officers, with everything. Any incidental costs, like if you want a room service or a movie or something like that, they would have someone at the dining hall, at the banquet hall. You wouldn't go to the front desk to pay for everything. Everything was all self-contained for just the players, not having to be around or interfered with anything. And that's what it was like for home and away games. Home games, there was always 2,000-3,000 people at the team hotel, just wanting to wave outside the window. Everything was all cordoned off. Huge police presence every place we went to. It was just absolutely insanity.
So you
It
got
was like a rock band.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got to feel what being like a celebrity, a high level celebrity was like because you were on America's team. The Dallas Cowboys in the 90s, I mean, at one point they were the most winningest Super Bowl team in history. I think tied with the 49ers with 7 Super Bowls at one point. I mean, you were on America's team
Yeah.
and like a celebrity figure. And now you start to feel that magic. Like, wait a second, this is different. This isn't just being in the NFL. This is being a star in the NFL or part of a unit that is like worshipped in the league. So that probably makes you feel pretty special. Leading in that season up to that game, do you know what it was about the Cowboys during that? Like, what made them so special? Because you had previous experience with other teams, so you can kind of weigh like what was the culture differences between playing for the Cowboys and playing for the Lions, and not to knock on the Lions, but why were they so special? What was it about the Cowboys that made them so dominant? That made them so successful repeatedly? Like you said, they had just won the Super Bowl and like they're going to the Super Bowl again. What was the magic in that that really helped you guys be who you were?
Well, the simple way of putting it really was they took advantage of the Herschel Walker trade. So when they made the trade for Herschel to go to Minnesota, and they got all of those picks that they used that they got from Minnesota ended up being Hall of Fame players. They changed the landscape of that team very quickly in an era, because that was before the free agency like we have now, where you can make a lot of moves. There wasn't a lot of big trades like that. That Herschel trade was a blockbuster at that era, and they then had some tangible assets that they turned into some unbelievable players. I forget what it was. I remember seeing a stat about who they got. They got like Russell Maryland, and they got Leon Ladd, and they got
Big cat.
yeah,
Leon
they
Lett.
had Ken Norton. You know what I'm saying? Like they got all these players that ended up just being just huge
So
college.
incredible leadership. They had
Yeah.
incredible leadership at the top that knew what plays to make to align themselves with, to become
Well, and at the same time, a lot of credit has to go to Coach Johnson and the staff and the scouting staff, you know, putting together, because they had to clean house. I mean, they were the worst team in the league when Jerry Jones bought the team and brought Jimmy in, and they didn't have a very good nucleus of a team. So they ended up, they had to take some steps back before they could move forward. But because of that trade and because of the assets that they had, Jimmy implemented how he wanted things done very quickly. And I learned that very quickly at practice, very fast. And he did things quick. Everything was, we're not going to be out here a long time, but when we're out here, do what we tell you to do. You got a game plan, execute the game plan, know the game plan. If you don't know it, you're going to be gone. And it was pretty simple. And Jimmy Johnson's the only coach that admitted to having a double standard. And all other coaches will say, no, I treat everybody the same. Well, guess what? Jimmy didn't. He said, he always used to say, figure out where you are on the totem pole. If you have a lot of people above you, don't fuck up. Okay. You don't have a lot of rope.
A lot of honesty.
Okay. So if you know where you are in this thing, you're going to have to bust your ass. Okay. And if you bust your ass, we're going to win, and you're going to reap the benefits of that if you do that. But if you don't, if you want to take a shortcut, you don't want to study, you don't know the plays, you don't know the game plan, you won't be around. It's going to be that simple. So you'll end up cutting yourself. I won't cut you. You'll cut yourself. And that was the mentality. But the thing was, is the players that bought into it, that ended up becoming Hall of Famers, becoming the superstar names that you had mentioned, they were very demanding of each other at practice. And I was always astonished at that. And one of them was really Michael Irvin. He was a stickler at when it was okay. It's offensive, you know, time up now, right? Offense. So the defense had to play the other defense. Michael was always coaching up the other DBs to make them look like who he was going to play against. He goes, hey, that guy, Dion's not going to play me that way. Okay, you've got to play me this way. This is how Dion's going to do this. This is how he's going to defend me in this coverage. And he was always coaching up, wanting to be really challenged at practice. And that went across the board with same thing with one-on-one offense and defensive linemen when they're working on one-on-one drills or where they're working on short goal line, all of that stuff. They wanted to have as close as they possibly could to a good look all during practice. And if it's left off, then Jimmy said, all right, fine, we'll stay out here until you get it right.
So there was extreme accountability amongst the players,
Absolutely.
not just from the staff.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a lot of it had to do with, the coordinators were great because Wanstead was the coordinator, and North Turner was the offensive coordinator, and Jimmy instilling what needed to be done, and the expectations of the assistant coaches to make sure that that he kept all of the different position guys all on the same page with what the total picture of what the game plan was going to be. He broke it down as simple as possible and just really worked on the things that they would do well against certain things. He didn't need to dive into the playbook and have a ton of plays and all the trick stuff and all the different things. He goes, hey, if we run, I forget what the play was. It was always, a trap. It was, Moose Johnson leading up for Emmett, and they would kick out and they'd run this play. They go, if they know that we're going to do this and we execute it right, we're going to gain yardage. But if we fuck up, if we don't do it right and we don't pay attention and we don't make the adjustments when they make an adjustment on defense to try to stop us and make those adjustments and know what they are, then we're not going to be successful. So you guys figure out what you want to do. We're going to give you everything that's going to make you successful. Buy into it. Okay, buy into it. And they did. They bought into it really quickly.
So here's the blueprint. We're focusing on fundamentals.
Yep.
You have to step up to the occasion or you're going to get out of here. And if we do this, we're going to be champions.
Yep.
So then you work out your way to the Super Bowl. What was it like playing in the Super Bowl? From that young kid that wanted to make it in athletics, you're on the Super Bowl in America's team. What was that like?
Well, that year was one of the years. I think they've only done it a few times, but after the NFC Championship game, we beat San Francisco and Dallas. Monday, we're going to Atlanta because the next week we're playing in the Super Bowl. It wasn't a 2 week.
I thought it was a 2 week gap. Next week.
We're on the plane Monday after the championship game, flying to Atlanta to go to the hotel to practice at the Falcons facility that whole week. And I think Buffalo used Georgia Tech's. I think it was Georgia Tech's facility. So we had the Falcons facility. So for me, it just felt like a long road trip, so we were right back into the same mode. We weren't like relaxing or anything like that.
It's just another game.
Here
we go, playing again.
Another game, right? I mean, and that's how it was preparing for everything. What hit me though was, I had my little idiosyncrasies that I always like to do. So I always like to go to the stadium as early as I could. We would have pregame meal. It was always 4 hours before kickoff. I'd finish it, and I would usually, like if it was a home game, I'd get my car and I'd go to the Silverdome. I'd just drive right to the Silverdome right away. On away games, the trainers after pregame meal, because they're always there, guys needed stuff with pregame meal, something they needed, then they would get in a cab and they would go before the team buses would take guys that would have, first team bus would go earlier, second, and all that kind of stuff. I would get in the cab with the trainers and go to the stadium. Where I hated being around the room for, an hour or so after just trying to wait for the buses to get on. I hated it. It wasn't me. I just wanted to be at the stadium. So that's what I did. I'd go and I went to the Georgia Dome early, but everything was different because during the NFL, during the regular season, the gates open 2 hours before kickoff. Super Bowl, the gates open, what, 6 in the morning. I mean, they're getting ready for it, a party. And that's when it hit me because everything was different. There was the hustle and bustle under the stadium for halftime and pregame celebrations and national anthem. Natalie Cole did our national anthem and all the entertainers and all of that was all kind of going on. And I would go change and then just get in my pants and just a shirt and go out and walk the stadium just to kind of get out. And it was always during the season, they're just workers in the stands. Well, now there's celebrities on the sidelines, and there's like 20,000 people already in the stadium, and it's 3 hours before kickoff. And I'm going, oh my God, I'm playing in the fucking Super Bowl. It hit me. And I ended up having the worst warm up I'd ever had, ever in my career, in the pregame warm up into the Super Bowl. And I'm going, man, I'm in trouble. I mean, it hit me. I'm nervous. It's affecting me. And the thing that helped me was we, Buffalo kicked off to us. Kevin Williams, the return guy, he returned it to like their 40. Like we almost scored on the opening touchdown. We went 3 downs, didn't get a first down, and I kicked a field goal like within the first minute and a half of the game, and I'm right into the game. It now became a game. It wasn't the Super Bowl anymore. All the nerves, everything. So I went 3 for 3 in field goals, 3 for 3 in extra points. Had a great game, struck the ball great all game, but those warm-ups was the worst warm-ups I ever had. Remember,
It's actually like that in fighting too. The fight is not the difficult part. It's those moments, which it's when you're sitting backstage getting your hands wrapped and you
right?
hear the crowd and you're thinking about all these things and you're about to walk out and they're going to lock that cage door.
Yeah.
It's never hard when the ref says, "Are you ready? Are you ready? Fight." It's that lead up, especially when it becomes something bit larger than life.
Yeah.
When it becomes like for a world title, it becomes larger than life. So it sounds like it was the perfect recipe for success for you because you had to kick a field goal so early. You didn't have to sit on the sidelines for a quarter going,
Right.
"Oh man, am I going to blow this? I had the worst warm up of my
Right.
life." You just went out there, boom, here's my shot. Okay, I put it between the posts like I do.
Yeah.
And now you're on track.
Yeah.
So you win the Super Bowl. What's that like for your family? What's that like for, your son, your wife, the people that have watched you come up from the beginning, you know what I mean? Like the old coaches and stuff. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
your life's very beautiful at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you win the Super Bowl and you start getting to the later parts of your career and you have to transition out of the league, how did you keep a strong psychology through that period? Because most people in life that I talk to that were professional athletes, they really struggle with that leaving or
Transition was tough. I mean, I think the thing that, well, I'll go back to the story I told you with, writing those notes, right? When I played golf out. The very first job I took, so I retired from football. My wife says, okay, what are you gonna do now? I'm going, I'm gonna go get a job.
that was just what you did.
That's
Just
what,
like the
and
kid that
so I'm
was
gone. She goes, you're not gonna take any time off. You're not gonna like, think maybe starting a business or anything like that. So no, I'm a grunt. Okay. I'm gonna go get a job.
you kept a blue collar mindset after being a Super Bowl champion. Eddie, that's amazing.
Well, of all things, the job interview that and the very first job I ended up getting was with a guy I wrote a note to. It was full circle.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, Joe Newmeyer. He owned a company called Newco. It was a tool and die and stamping company, and he was a friend of a guy who was in my golf league, and I just kind of put the word out with guys in the league. Hey, anybody knows if anyone's looking for this and do repping because that's kind of like what I did in the off season. A lot of repping and sales and new business and those types of things with companies and that. And so the golf buddy of mine says, "Hey, I got a friend of mine who's got this company. He said he met you before. He played in the golf out of with you, and you wrote him a note." I'm going, "Oh my God, really?" I said, "Yeah, I used to do that way back." And sure enough, Joe told me, he goes, "Hey, we played at this golf tournament." And he goes, he said, "I played in thousands of golf tournaments. I've never had anyone write me a note like you did. And it made an impression. I want to hire you."
That's incredible.
Yeah.
All the dots that you said, you know what, this might line up. This is genuine. This is authentic. They helped you get to the next stage, move on to the next spot. And,
Mhm.
that's amazing. It shows the little things matter. A lot of times people forget that. Like the little things you do on a daily basis, you could affect someone's life tremendously by just giving a little bit of your effort.
No,
And if more people keep that in mind, I think it's just, and it makes you feel good. You weren't writing the letters because you thought down the road this might
right.
happen. You did it because it's genuine and it makes you feel good. So then you transition out of the league and it sounds like you got a good job right when
Yeah,
you got out.
I did kind of like what I did in the off season. I did a lot of new business and repping for companies and sales. And so I was in Tulane stamping. I did a bunch of that and got into wire and cable. I was a salesperson for fiber optic and copper wiring and all that kind of stuff. And of all things, what I do now, I never thought I'd do. So I'm in nonprofit. So I work for a nonprofit based out of Grand Rapids called Hope Network. I've been with them for 10 years. So I originally got introduced to them at a golf outing. So I have a friend of mine.
Outings.
So I have a friend of mine, I should say a neighbor of mine, saying, "Hey, there's a guy that I know. He's having a golf outing, and he knows that I know you, and he was wondering if you would be so kind as maybe getting some autograph items from the Detroit Lions. He's having this new golf outing to help raise money for an organization called Hope Network." And so I get introduced to the guy, and I said, "Yeah, what do you look for?" So I get Matthew Stafford and Calvin and I sign up all Columbus Brown's another buddy of mine. So I got a bunch of items not for him, and he goes, "Hey, we'd love to have you come and play in the outing." Oh, okay, free golf on there. Okay, I love that. So I do. I go and I play in the golf outing, and I get introduced to Phil Weaver, the CEO. And Phil thanks me he goes, "Hey, I understand you donate some stuff." And I said, "Yeah, it's the least I can do. I had a great day. It was a fun event. Hopefully, you guys, make some good money in that." And he goes, "Hey, I'd be interested in going to lunch with you next week. Are you, would you like to do that?" And I said, "Sure." So I do. I go and meet him up for lunch, and he's explaining more about Hope Network and all of this stuff that's going on. And he goes, "Ed, would you be interested in sitting on our board?" And I'm going, "Well, I'll be honest with you, I've never been asked to sit on a board. What do you need me to do?" And he goes, "Well, we're based in Grand Rapids." He said, "Unfortunately, even people in Grand Rapids don't know what we do. And we've been in existence for 50 years. Um, our foundation board, which are most of the philanthropic, like Dan DeVos is on the board. He's been on the board for 20 more years. And the philanthropic people of that area, the Myers, the Steel Cases, and, Herman Miller's, people of that area that have been very philanthropic have sat on the board." And he said, "We don't have anyone really down in Southeast Michigan, down here in the Tri-County area. And I'd be interested to have you sit on our board." Um, and I said, "Well, then what do you want me to do?" And he goes, "I just need you to be an advocate. And, I know you're very active in the community. You do a lot of charity stuff. You play in the golf outings and you here. Um, you know, uh, would you be interested?" And sure enough, I did. I sat on their board for 5 years. Had a golf outing for them here at Oakland University. I've had past, let's see, my 8th year having the event for them. Um, and just became an advocate. I was working in the wire and cable industry, like I told you. And long story short, we had a company come and merge with us. And so when that happens, there's redundancy. So that means there's people doing the same job. And so after a little while, I got let go. I wasn't doing anything wrong. The new guy came in and says, "Ed, I have a new business guy. I know him. I'm letting you go." And so I was out of work. Um, we had our quarterly foundation board meeting coming up in Grand Rapids. So I'm attending the meeting, and Bill goes, "Hey, how are things going?" And all that. So I got let go at Hope. They just let me go because they got the guy that they had before. And he goes, "Come see me after the meeting. I want to hire you." And so he goes, "I want to pay you for what you've been doing for free." I said, I need you to keep doing what you're doing, but you've been doing such a good job for us. I want you to be, I want to offer you a position." So he did. They gave me Director of Donor Relations for Southeast Michigan for Hope Network. So past 5 years, that's what I've been doing, is working for Hope Network. And they got great services. Their pillars of service are mental health. So we service over 35,000 mental health patients in all 83 counties of Michigan. So we're only a Michigan-based organization. Most of that population are TBI people, so closed head injuries from car accidents, stroke victims. So we have a lot of neuro rehab facilities around the state. The other thing is we have 5 early diagnosis autism centers, 2 in Grand Rapids, 1 in Holland, 1 in East Lansing with a partnership with Michigan State University. And our newest one's in Livonia at the old Ladywood High School facility, which was a private girls' school right beside Madonna University in Livonia. They unfortunately, their enrollment got down, they had to close the school, so we just took half the building and we just opened up about 2 months ago. So that's our newest location. We have also a reading program that we're in at every Flint elementary school. We're in 8 of the Detroit school systems. It's a tutor-based program. It's slightly different. We get some unbelievable results. So the parameters of the reading program is the identified child that needs help will get 20 minutes of individual tutoring from the AmeriCorps tutor a day for 5 days. So if they can do that for 5 days, 14 weeks, which is basically a semester, if they can hit those parameters, we're hitting 97% of the kids get to 3rd grade reading level or higher.
Wow.
So it's a different type of approach, but the results that we're getting is just phenomenal.
Well, I mean, one-on-one education is always the best. It's like the Socrates method is anytime you have a teacher and a student, you can take out the barriers and the one-on-one. There's so much more progress in that versus throwing 30 kids in a room and they're all trying to work at the same pace, understand under the same words that are being spoken. We all learn differently. So
Yep.
when you can sit down with an individual and really give your time and effort, you're always going to generate the best results. That's amazing to hear about.
Yeah, this program's really done a really good job, and Hope Network they're kind of like a gap nonprofit. They really find the gaps that need support. So a lot of the things like we have the largest independent transportation system in the state.
Wow.
So we have over 90 vehicles where we offer transportation to people we service, mental health, autism, whatever it is, because and we're in 4 counties up in the western part of the state that we offer these services. So for lack of better words, it's like Uber for Hope Network. So if you're getting services for, let's say, a closed-head injury from a car accident, and your caregiver can't get you to the service for some reason, you can call up Hope Network and wherever the closest van is. So there, if you talk to people up in Grand Rapids again, hey, have you ever seen the red buses that are around there? And so they think we're a busing system. So we have red buses. Hope Network has buses. They're red, and they're for our clientele.
That's super smart. I mean, like you said, fill the gaps.
So they can't get around, or they need to go to the dentist, and then they need to go get some services or some rehab done. That they can call, and the buses will just kind of go and pick them up. So it's again, it's an unbelievable service that they have. And we have over 300 group homes around the state where there are people that are in situations where there could be people with disabilities, and now their caregiver has passed, so they still need shelter. So we have these group homes around the state, and there's no sign outside. It's just basically a home where there could be 4 to 6 individuals in there. They always get 24/7 healthcare, medical assistance. So there's usually medication dispensing that we help them with. So there's always someone there keeping an eye on them. But after that, they're making their meals, they're making their beds, they're watching TV, they're playing PlayStation. They got flowers outside, whatever it is, but it's just a home.
So if someone was listening to this and they're really fascinated by Hope Network, they want to learn more, like where are the best places to find resources, information on this? If someone was interested in donating, should they reach out to you? Is there a simple process they can follow? Because this is a phenomenal service and things like this, people need to know about it. I have never heard of Hope Network until you're saying it.
Right.
And more of these things need to be on the forefront of people's minds so that when others are struggling, they just think of it. They go, hey, we should consider if Hope Network is right for this person.
Well, our website has everything that people will need for additional information, or even with all the separate service lines that we have, they can learn more by just going to hopenetwork.org and checking things out. If people want to get involved in supporting us, they have a donation tab there that people can go, and you can earmark donations for a certain service line if you want to, or we have what, for lack of better words, it's called the greatest need fund. So it's just a whatever is needed out of there. Like a lot of our group homes may need, we need to renovate a bathroom, or we need to put in a ramp into a group home that didn't have it before, those types of things. And making sure that they get everything that they need in those homes at the same time. So again, it's just some of the different services that we have. We have a returning citizens program. So we decided to work with the Department of Corrections to try to identify certain uh, inmates that are coming out of the prison system that are in a situation where we can help them resume build, even give them a little bit of job skills while they're in prison.
Trying to get them back on their feet,
Right,
be healthy,
because the
functioning.
redundancy, as we all know, those
Terrible.
statistics aren't changing. They're pretty high. That people that are in prison have a tendency of going back to prison. So what we do with this program, it's been about 5 years that we put this in. We implemented it where they get vetted where they're there. I mean, we're not, I mean, for lack of better words, the hardened criminal that is not really wanting to change his life. We're not interested in helping them. We'll give them their services while they're there. But as far as the correctional side of things, but as far as what Hope Network's trying to do is to give them some tools that they can change their life when they come out. So with all of the people that we've vetted and we've helped and give them some job skills and resume build while they're in prison, we then find them a job when they come out of prison. But what we do, and here's the gap part of it, if they happen to lose their job for some reason, whatever it is, we then continue helping them find a job. But the thing with the program, and here's what is a great stat with it, of all of the people that we have worked with, 100% of those people have not gone back to prison.
100%.
Not 99, 100% of them. Everyone we work with have not gotten back to prison yet. They may be without a job, but they're not back in prison.
That is incredible.
So it's a stat that I know is on the judges' radars with it. I happened to be at an event a couple of years ago before COVID, a Christmas event, and I sat next to Supreme Court Justice McCormick, and we were just pleasantries, what we're doing, and all of this stuff. And she said, hey, what are you doing now? And I said, I work for Hope Network. She goes, oh my God, they're the people that have that great program in prison. And she goes, I always look to see what people that sit in front of me, stand in front of me when I'm placing them, that this is someone who could maybe take advantage of this. And she's always saying to the attorneys, hey, tell your client when he's there, take advantage of what Hope Network is doing in the prison systems.
Man, I mean, 100%. If you would have told me 80%, I was going to be shocked. 100% is absolutely remarkable. It tells you that given the right circumstances, assistance, guidance, support, and someone actually giving a shit about you can get you back on your feet.
Yeah.
The same way that your coach told you when you go to Tulane University, said, take advantage of all the programs, get the tutoring, get the one-on-one, get your education, find ways to study, use those resources. You're providing that for other people that are probably at the lowest points of their lives.
Yeah.
And if they can get a foundation again, maybe they can get back on track.
Mhm.
Man, that's incredible. So people that have listened to this, man, Hope Network, you need to research it, look it up. We need more things in society like this, especially for the mental health crisis we have going on in the nation.
Right now.
It's insane. And with all the polarization of people and all the divisiveness, it's probably going to get worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's going to get
Yeah,
worse.
unfortunately, it's yeah.
We need to come back together.
It needs some big changes fast.
I literally started this podcast because I was like, we need to get back to good, genuine dialogue amongst people, telling our stories, talking about wins in life and successes and inspiring others because it's just so divided now, so emotional, so angry. Everybody's up in arms about everything, and life doesn't have to be that way. So it's wonderful to hear about things like that. Man, we have crushed an hour and 40 minutes.
Wow.
Like it was
Well,
nothing.
that went nothing. Yeah.
Like it was nothing, Eddie. And man, I can't
Thank you.
express to you enough how much of an honor it was to sit with you today. When I was a child, I probably had a Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, or Emmitt Smith jersey on, but I was sitting there watching those games. I watched that Super Bowl game as a young kid, and I remember being so inspired and motivated by the feeling of like, man, these are like superheroes. That's how I looked at you guys, because the Dallas Cowboys were with my Uncle Martin, who's from
Mhm.
England.
Yeah.
It was his favorite team, and he poured the love for the Cowboys onto me. And it's like I looked at you guys like superheroes, and I think that type of belief and like that type of energy in life propelled me to venture out of my home and turn into a professional athlete and start this academy now that I own. And
Yeah.
it's you know what I mean? So like it's amazing that here we are sitting at a table podcasting, and it's like I knew you before you knew me. You know what I mean? So it was an honor to sit with you today,
Thank
sir.
you for having me.
And we'll wrap this up.
You got it.